Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to Lincoln's Pub for a town hall with Senator Harris. What a great night it is. And you know what? It's very good to see so many young faces in the crowd. You can learn a lot from Senator Harris. She's worked so hard throughout her career. She's an inspiration to you all. So we're very happy that you're all here. Thank you. Can we give another round of applause to Dave Berman, who warmed y'all up? Sound like a young Bob Dylan out there, am I right? Thank you to Ryan Mann and John Nelson, the owners of this establishment, for allowing this to happen. And thank you to Legion, who helped clear all the tables out. This used to be a restaurant, believe it or not, this morning. And now it's this. They did a great job. Fantastic job. Did you guys know that Abraham Lincoln is the only president of the United States to be a licensed bartender? One of the reasons that we named the pub after him. I'm sure he made a mean old-fashioned, but they called it a new fashion back in the day. About 250 years ago, the brave men and women of America came to pubs and taverns across the colonies to talk politics, religion, business, and philosophy. And they laid the foundation to the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of the Independence. Tonight we gather here again to talk, as is American tradition, about our concerns and the direction that we think that our nation needs to go. This is a big night for everyone, and congratulations to you all for being here. Now, as a private business, we don't endorse anyone for the presidency, but we do believe it is our civic duty to host a town hall like this so everyone can have their voice heard and their opinions heard as well, and that you can hear what the senator is planning to do as she runs for the presidency of the United States. And once again, thank you for coming, and I hope you all enjoy the night. Thank you.
Please welcome Kamala Harris for the People field organizer, Leo McCaffrey.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us today in Council Bluffs. As mentioned, my name is Leo McCaffrey, and I'm honored to be one of the field organizers for Senator Kamala Harris here in Southwest Iowa. Originally, I'm from San Francisco, California, so growing up, San Francisco. Growing up, I called her D.A. Harris, and then State Attorney General Harris, Senator Harris, and I can't wait to call her President Harris. Her whole career has been working for people who don't have a voice, who are vulnerable. She has been a leader in making sure that everyone has a voice and that everyone is getting justice, because we know justice is on the ballot this time. When she was Attorney General of California, she was able to get the rape kit backlog in California gone so survivors can get justice against their perpetrators. I saw her get settlements against the big banks when they foreclosed on people illegally. And I remember in 2004, I was a little kid, but I remember it, when she was performing same-sex marriages and allowing people to be married. When at a time some Democrats were debating civil unions, she was on the forefront making sure that marriage was an option for people, because she knew the only way to get equality in the LGBTQ community was marriage equality. It was moments like that that I knew when I was coming out that I had a fighter in my corner, because Kamala was in my corner. And that's why I'm asking you, on February 3rd to be in Kamala's corner on the caucus. Come out, knock doors with us, make some phone calls, and let us make history on February 3rd, because on November 3rd, we got to make sure that dude, he's got to go. He's got to go. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I really hope you enjoy the program. Remember, let's knock some doors, let's make some phone calls. Woo!
Now welcome Chair of the Iowa 3rd Congressional District Democrats, Glenn Hurst.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Glenn Hurst. I am chair of the 3rd District of Iowa. For those of you who are not from Iowa, that's Cindy Axne's district. Right. Definitely give it up for Cindy. Cindy worked very hard to bring Iowa values to the U.S. Congress, taking this seat from David Young. He's going to challenge her again this year, and we want to make sure that, that she's back on top, right? Yeah. Right. We do this by being engaged. We've got to be engaged in this process. Those of you who know me have seen me. We get a little bit of coverage for some of the actions we do over here in Iowa. You might see me labeled as a radical on occasion, but I'll tell you that's not what I am. I don't think there's anything radical about expecting to keep unions strong and to keep a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. I don't think there's anything radical about when a person is ill that they can go to the doctor of their choice and they can get the care that they need without having to struggle and go into bankruptcy and possibly not have their condition cared for. I don't think that's radical. I don't think that it's radical to allow a woman to control her body. If you knew me in 2016, you'd wonder, how's this guy up here today? Because all I did was vote. I showed up in November and I checked my box and I went home. I didn't write a check. I didn't knock a door. I didn't talk to a family member or a friend. You know, I see a lot of kids out here. My daughter's buried in there somewhere. There she is. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we didn't do more. Because you deserve more. And we're here to get it right for you this time, right? I'm not asking people to be radical. I'm asking you to just show up. Make a phone call. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to your friends. Be a proud Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat in Southwest Iowa. You don't have to work on a campaign. You don't have to do things that are terribly uncomfortable. You can put your values to work, and that's how we convince people that the Democratic values are the right values for Iowa. Show up and serve at the homeless shelter. Show up and look those people in the eye and tell them that they are valued, all right? Show up at the library and listen to a talk from the African American Museum of Iowa, and learn a little bit about our culture and our history here. Put yourself just a little bit farther out. Put your face just a little bit farther in front of people, and this will be your country, not their country. When I have been on the campaign trail, what I meet are not candidates and not superstars. I meet people. Cindy Axne is just a woman who was a business owner in Des Moines who said, you know, I'm capable of leading this district. I'm capable of carrying the values of this district to Washington. All of the candidates here running for president, Kamala Harris included, these are people who have put themselves in a position to be of service. Surround yourselves with people like that. Participate with people like that. Be a person like that so that we can have the country that we all want so desperately for our kids, for our parents, for ourselves. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to represent the 3rd District, and I would ask all of you to reach out, touch the person next to you and tell them, I'm a proud Democrat and I'm going to vote in November.
Finally, please welcome tonight's moderator, Minister Virgery Sanford.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing tonight? All right. As I said, my name is Virgery Sanford, and I am truly honored, and it's my privilege to introduce to you presidential candidate, Senator Kamala Harris. My first experience with Senator Harris was when I was running for city council here in Council Bluffs. I was a novice, and I had no idea what to do. And I began to watch videos of her and look at pictures of her just to get an idea of how I should be or what I should do. She was a wonderful example of a woman of color in politics. So for that reason, I am so proud to be supporting her in this election because she is a wonderful example of strength, intelligence, and grace. And because she has been a fearless advocate for all people throughout her entire career. Supporting Kamala is deeply personal to me. Overcoming cancer diagnosis was one of the most difficult challenges that I've ever faced in my life. I'm proud to say that I am a cancer survivor now. Amen. Yeah. I ask for amen on that. It's because of God, amen. And then all of the hospital and all of the wonderful healthcare workers here in Council Bluffs. But I can't imagine what it would be like to have to face cancer or any other disease, having to worry about going into bankruptcy. That's why I believe access to affordable, quality health care is a human right. You agree with me? And Kamala Harris does too. And I know in my heart that she is the person who will fight for all people on these issues that affect us all, because it's exactly what she's done her entire life. She's taken on pharmaceutical companies and sued corporate polluters and won billions for homeowners from the big banks. She's held the Trump administration accountable and pushed to raise the minimum wage, provide tax cuts for the middle class, reform the cash bail system, and so much more. So she's fought for us, and she's fought for all people. I could not be more proud to welcome her back to Council Bluffs today. So please join me in welcoming a vocal and determined fighter on behalf of all people, Senator Kamala Harris.
My flight was delayed, and I'm so sorry that we had to start a little late, but I want to thank you for your patience and for being here, and it's so great to be back in Council Bluffs. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Have a seat. Have a seat, Virgie. I'm going to talk for a while. It's great to be back. It's great to be back, and I want to thank you guys. There's so many other things you could be doing with your time right now, and I'm honored that you've chosen to share it with us. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to get right into it and share with you a couple of my observations and thoughts and a few plans of action, but then we're going to pass around this microphone because I really would love to hear from you, too. So let's just get right into it. You know, what a time we're living in right now. What a time. What a time. You know, these years, these last 2.5 years, really longer because of that election that preceded it, right? It's caused us, a lot of us, to ask really fundamental questions about our country. Who are we? Are we going to be okay? How did this happen? Will we recover? Right? I know. It's caused a range of emotions that are about sadness and depression and anger and fear and confusion, right? These last, years have, caused us to throw objects at an inanimate object called a television. Go through individual and group therapy about it all. I know that. But I want us to remember something. There is nothing that we as a nation have achieved that has been about progress that came without a fight. Anything we have achieved that has been about fighting for the ideals of our country, fighting for social justice, for civil rights, all of that came about because of a fight, and we were prepared to have that fight. We like a good fight. We are up for a good fight. We as a nation were born out of a fight. And so this is that moment, yet again, where we cannot afford nor dare to throw up our hands when it's time to roll up our sleeves. And obviously everybody here knows it. That's why you're hanging out with me tonight, right? So we're good. We're good for this fight. And I'll tell you, I am a daughter of parents who were fighters. My parents met when they were students in the 1960s and active in the civil rights movement. My sister Maya and I, we joke that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting. And they were shouting for justice, right? The heroes of that movement, among many, were folks like Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston and Constance Baker Motley, these individuals who understood the skill of the profession of law to translate the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country and to do the work that we know must constantly be done of reminding folks of that promise we articulated in 1776, that we are all equal and should be treated that way. And that's why I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And in that fight for justice, and then after I graduated law school, my mother, who raised my sister and me, she said, okay, Kamala, so what are you going to do in your fight for justice? And I told her I decided to become a prosecutor. Because I said, I want to be in a place where I can be a voice for the most voiceless and vulnerable. And I want to also be in a place where I can make decisions that are about reforming a system that all too often has committed great injustice and has been informed by racial bias. So I made a decision to become a prosecutor. I joined, right out of law school, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office in Oakland, California, that Earl Warren once led. And my first day of walking into the courtroom, and every day since, I stood in that courtroom and I said, Kamala Harris for the people. And that phrase, for the people, it really does epitomize two of the most important, I think, aspects of what it means to have a system of justice. One, when I said for the people, it meant understanding and believing that a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. Two, for the people means all the people, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote, regardless of their geographic location, regardless of the language their grandmother speaks. It means all the people. All the people. And so, that's the work I did. And early in my career, my focus was on crimes against women and children, where I stood in that courtroom talking about why they deserved to have dignity and a safe place and not be judged. Because truly, we must agree that a system of justice protects the least of these. standing in that courtroom for the people when I was the elected district attorney, elected as the first woman and woman of color to be district attorney of any county in a state of 40 million people as a woman of color. For the people meant doing the work of creating one of the first in the nation initiatives focused on young people, adults who had been arrested for drugs, and getting them jobs and counseling. Why? Because we knew that this failed war on drug led to America's great shame of mass incarceration, and we needed to be better. For the people, when I was Attorney General of California, elected, yes, as the first woman Attorney General, in a state of 40 million people, where I led the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, meant fighting the big banks who had been engaged in predatory lending practices, taking advantage of working families. It meant taking on the big pharmaceutical companies who had been jacking up prices and engaged in false advertising. It meant taking on some of the most powerful interests, including big oil, and winning. And for the people, meant in the United States Senate, when I was elected as the second black woman in the history of the United States Senate, to taking on people like Jeff Sessions and people like Bill Barr and people like Kavanaugh, and saying that our fight for justice is also a fight for truth. And today I stand here then saying, Kamala Harris, for the people, with every and full intention to say goodbye to Donald Trump. In the name of the people. And so that's why I'm running. That's why I'm running. And I do believe, Council Bluffs, I do believe that in 2020, justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot. When in America, the family that owns Walmart makes more in 60 seconds than the average American family makes in a year, justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when in 99% of the counties in the United States, if you're a minimum wage worker working full-time, you cannot afford market rate for a one-bedroom apartment. Justice is on the ballot when women across our country are being denied their constitutional right to make decisions about their own bodies, and instead we have these out-of-touch politicians passing these laws that are clearly against our Constitution and must be defeated. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when there are babies in our nation, elementary, middle, high school students who are afraid to go to school because of fear of gun violence. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when we have people in Washington, D.C. who are in the back pocket of the big oil companies and are pushing science fiction instead of science fact to our collective peril. Justice is on the ballot when we have a system of mass incarceration in America, and we have people like a young woman by the name of Tatiana who is sitting in her home and is shot and killed because apparently probable cause is being black in your own home. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when we look at the fact that across America, be it children who are living in poverty or living in a community where there is violence, and are experiencing trauma, because be clear, poverty is trauma-inducing, to everyone from veterans to farmers who are having suicide rates that are not being discussed because of America's biggest public policy failure, which is the failure to invest in mental health. Justice is on the ballot. And justice is on the ballot when we have a criminal living in the White House. And I'll tell you, the way that Virgil, the way I've been discussing it is that basically, you know what I think? I think he's basically a walking indictment in a red tie. Justice is on the ballot. And so these are the realities. The reality is that in Donald Trump, we also have someone who has sold people out. And, and I say that because the pundits, and I think it's really important to find time to turn off cable news from time to time, just for, speaking of healthy living. It's important sometime to turn it off. The pundits are making a mistake if they compare too much 2016 to 2020. 2020 is not going to be 2016 for a number of reasons, including the fact that, the guy came in office campaigning about how he was going to make America great again, right? Came in office talking about basically going backward. But he also came in office making a lot of promises to a lot of people, including working people, and he sold people out. Sold out working people, everyone from farmers to auto workers. When he comes in office, passing a tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America. When he engages in trade policy, so-called trade policy, by tweet, based on unilateral action, born out of a fragile ego, that has resulted in farmers looking at bankruptcy, that the American families are spending $1,000 more on everything from clothing to washing machine because of those tariffs. 300,000 people have lost their jobs because of his so-called trade policy. He sold people out. He sold out our values with policies that have been about putting babies in cages and separating children from their parents in the name of border security, when in fact what it is a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. He sold out our values, fanning the flames of hate and xenophobia. People asked me after the massacre in El Paso, they said, well, do you think he's responsible? And I said, well, clearly he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition. Sold out our values, and sold out our country. Because just remember, the President of the United States is also the Commander-in-Chief. And the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America has as her greatest responsibility to concern herself with the security of our nation and homeland. But what have we had in Donald Trump? We have had someone who, on the fact of Russia's interference in the election of the President of the United States, prefers to take the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of an American student who was tortured and later died, prefers to take the word of a North Korean dictator over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of a journalist who was assassinated, a journalist who had American credentials, prefers to take the word of a Saudi prince over the word of the American intelligence community. We need a new commander-in-chief. And that's not to mention what we have seen happen with Ukraine. And God love the United States Congress, and in particular the House of Representatives, for beginning this process. And so all of that is to say that clearly it is time to turn the page. It is time to turn the page. And I would also then say that to do that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to successfully prosecute the case against 4 more years of Donald Trump in the name of justice. And I believe it will take a prosecutor to do it. So yes, we must turn the page, but here's the other thing that is equally important. We must also be dedicated and prepared after turning that page to write the next chapter. To write the next chapter based on an America we believe in. And so here's the thing, Council Bluffs, that I think of when I say that. Part of the fatigue, folks are exhausted, right? And part of the fatigue comes from the fact that we've had powerful forces that have been trying to sow hate and division among us, trying to get us pointing fingers at each other, trying to get us to turn on each other. We need, in the next leader of our country as president, someone who has an ability to help us heal and unify. And I will tell you, in all of my experiences, personal and professional, having lived many places in many cultures, there is a fact that I know to be true about who we are, which is, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of geographic location, regardless of the party with which you're registered to vote, regardless of the language your grandmother speaks, the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. Right? And in writing then the next chapter, let us approach it with that spirit, with that knowledge, having faith and believing in it to be true as it is. Because here's how I think about that. I think about that in the thought of a father who, across America, regardless of where he lives or what he looks like, who at midnight, after everyone else in his family has gone to sleep, is sitting at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how to make it all work. And for him, sitting there knowing that he is one of the almost half of American families that cannot afford a $400 unexpected expense. He is one of the over half of American families who will go bankrupt with a $500 medical bill. And that's why we're fighting for him. And fighting for him, saying that we will deliver the most significant middle-class tax cut we've had in generations, and specifically that for families that make less than $100,000 a year, they'll get a tax credit of up to $6,000 a year that they can take home at up to $500 a month. And when I rolled out this plan, it was described by economists as what will be the most significant, but yet, of course, there were the naysayers, and they said, of course, well, how are you going to pay for that? That's what I heard. Well, I'll tell you guys how we're going to pay for that. On day one, we're repealing that tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America. In the name of the people, knowing we all have so much more in common than what separates us, we're fighting for that mother who calls 911 because her child has got a fever that is out of control. And she's told, take the child to the emergency room. So she packs the child up in the back seat. She drives to the hospital. She's sitting in the parking lot, looking at those sliding glass doors. But she's afraid to walk through, because she knows if she walks through those sliding glass doors, she'll be out of pocket a $5,000 deductible. So in the name of her and the people, we are fighting for health care that is affordable for everyone as a value, that it is not going to be a function of how much money you have in your back pocket, which is why we're fighting for Medicare for all. Now here, there are different plans. Let me tell you mine. Because there's a point of distinction, and I got to be clear about this. So, yes, Medicare for all. We're going to bring costs down. Everyone will be covered, including those with pre-existing conditions. We're going to extend Medicare coverage. We're going to extend Medicare coverage to include vision and dental and hearing aids. And now here's a point of distinction between me and some of my friends on the stage. And we're not going to raise middle-class taxes. And I'm not going to take away your choice between a private plan or a public plan, because I heard from too many people and say, Kamala, don't take my choice. In the name of the people, we're going to be fighting for those children who have been going back to school to endure a drill during which they are learning how to hide in a closet in the event there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. And we are fighting for those children knowing they could care less on this issue, could care less who their parents voted for in the last election. And when they come home and ask us, why did we have to have that drill? Of course, the answer is because there are a bunch of people in D.C. who have failed to have the courage to reject a false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away, who have failed to have the courage to say, hey, fine if you want to go hunting, but we need reasonable gun safety laws in our country, including universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapons ban. And in the name of the people, we are going to fight for that. And in the name of the people, and again, it's a point of distinction between me and some of my friends on the stage. I'm really clear about this because I've seen too many autopsy photographs in my career. I've hugged too many mothers of homicide victims in my career. I will give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together on this and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, I'm prepared to take executive action to put in place a ban. Time to take action. So in the name of the people, we join together for this fight. And so I do want to also discuss then the campaign. And, you know, I've been in this campaign now for about 10 months. And I'm at the point where, you know, I'm just like all about real talk, you know, like why waste anybody's time? And so I do want to address something that I believe has developed in this election as an elephant in the room. I actually think it's more of a donkey in the room. And it's this conversation about electability. And it's been coming up in connection with our campaign. And the conversation goes something like this. Well, I'm not really sure if America is ready for a woman of color to be president of the United States. Like, I'm ready, but I don't know if my neighbor is ready. Or maybe it's not your turn, or maybe it's not your time, or, oh, it's going to be so difficult. Well, I raise this to tell you guys, this is not a new conversation for me. In fact, this is a conversation I have heard in every campaign I have, and now here's the operative word, won. Yeah. And I share this with you not to say anything about me, but to say everything about you and who we are as a country. Because we have the ability, and Iowa in particular, has the ability and has a proven ability to be a leader in seeing what is possible even when we've not seen it before. To believe in what can be and have faith in that, in what can be unburdened by what has been. Iowa in particular is a state, and Iowans are a people who never sit back and wait for somebody else's permission to say what is possible. And I thank you for that. And so this is that moment in time where we are fighting for what we know is possible and what we believe. And the America that we believe in, an America where, yes, everyone has access to health care, an America where we pay our teachers their value, an America where women have access to reproductive health care, an America where we treat our immigrants with dignity and not criminalize them. An America where we once again have respect and regard for our highest elected officials. An America where once again, when we see a perfect stranger in their face, we see a neighbor. That's the America we are fighting for. That's the America we are fighting for, and that's why we will win. So thank you all. So thank you, and I'm here to ask you to please join us in Kamala's Corner on caucus night. And with that, Virgin, let's take some questions. I want to hear from everybody.
All right, Senator's going to take some questions. Okay.
We have roving microphones, and our volunteers and teams should be walking around with them.
Me? Okay. Oh, Senator Harris, it is.
Wave your hand. I don't know who's speaking. There you are. Hi.
Hi, Senator Harris. It is an honor. My boyfriend is dying right now because he loves you more than me, but that's all right.
I want you to be equally committed.
We are. It's all right. Senator Harris, it is an honor. The current president is a racist, xenophobe, sexist, and white supremacist. What will you do when you are president, because I honestly believe you will become president, to make sure hate is no longer acceptable, especially in the highest office of the land?
That's right. That's a wonderful question. So one of the most powerful tools in the hands of the President of the United States is when she holds this microphone. Because with that comes a profound ability and power to influence perception about a range of issues. And as we all know, and this is what Donald Trump does not get, among the many things he doesn't get, is that the true measure of power and strength is based not on who you beat down, it's based on who you lift up. And to your point, when we look at how he has been fanning the flames of everything you described rightly, we're going to need to heal. And we will need someone who holds this microphone and has the ability to see what we all know, which is that we all have so much more in common than what separates us, which is to also speak truth, by the way. Because listen, like I said, I'm all about candor. So let's also agree, racism, anti-Semitism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, these things existed before Donald Trump was elected, and they will exist after he's out of office. So let's speak truth, uncomfortable though it may make us, and also then use this as a moment to recommit ourselves to speaking truth about the history of these issues in our country in a way that is about healing, but not based on some inauthentic view of what unity looks like. And here I'm going to break this down for a moment. So there is a term that Democrats have been using, Republicans too, but Democrats have been using, that is, I believe, the kind of the modern version of the race card. And that term is identity politics. And it's a term that I find is raised whenever we're talking about issues that are essentially civil rights issues, about race, gender, orientation, religion, things of that nature. And it is raised with the intention of marginalizing the issue, or of shushing or even shutting us up. And here's the thing about it. When we talk about where America stands on these issues, that's not about identity politics, someone's identity. It's about America's identity. Where America stands on those issues is about America's identity. So as we go forward, after we get him out of office, we also need to have an honest conversation about this. Because unity, for the sake of unity, is not unity. Unity, true unity, okay, is not just, hey, everybody come under one roof and let's sing a nice kumbaya song. That's not unity. It's not unity to say, hey, everyone come into the same room, but hey, you guys, you should be a little quiet about your thing. That's not unity. Unity is when everyone is in the room and there is mutual respect and acknowledgement about the issues that each faces. So that's my vision of unity, and I know we can get there. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question back here. You have a mic? We need a mic, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming and spending the evening with us.
Of course.
First, I loved your response on identity politics. I thought that was brilliant. Keep saying that. That was
thank
really
you.
nice.
Thank you.
My question would be, as we reflect daily, pretty much daily, we see a White House in chaos.
Yep.
I'm curious to think about what your White House will look like.
Yep.
Will look like.
Yes. Yes.
So as you think about advisors and who you're going to put around you as far as staffing the White House, even nominees for cabinet positions,
Yep.
who have you looked to in the past and think about now and reflect and say, the characteristics of some of my past advisors have looked like what?
Yeah.
What have they given you? And then what will you look for in building that
that's a
cabinet and that staff in the
wonderful
future?
question. I appreciate that. And to your point, because I have, until I arrived in the United States Senate, every one of my positions has been as an executive. I ran the DA's office of 200 and something folks in a major city. I ran the California Department of Justice, which, again, second largest in the country, office of 5,000 people. And so I have been very fortunate to have extraordinary teams. And it's a great question the way you ask it. What are their attributes? The attributes of the folks that I rely on are that they're very smart, that they think about the implications of policy on real people, that it's not just about a lovely speech or writing some article for a journal, that they have life experience, that they as a team reflect the people who will be impacted by any word I speak, much less any policy that I propose. And those are some of the attributes. I will tell you that I'm really excited to form a cabinet. One of the moments of joy, now this is going to be just so awful for me to say, but one of the moments of joy that I'm going to have is to say thank you and goodbye, Betsy DeVos. But because I want a cabinet that actually understands and appreciates the integrity and the purpose of government. Right? Right, because here's the thing, let's remember, I mean, there are three, and I say this as a devout public servant, I've only had one client in my life, and that's the people, my entire career. And I will tell you that, let's just look at government's essential functions. There are three: public health, public safety, and public education. And so there needs to be then in our cabinet people who appreciate the responsibility that comes with that, of one, not trying to privatize these things, and to profit off of, I'm on day one, I'm shutting down those private detention centers and the private prisons, right? but that we have people in the cabinet who understand the nobility of public service and that these offices are held in the public trust. That is such an important point. These, unlike this administration, which has just been so blatant about self-service. I mean, almost the entire cabinet is just a cabinet of special interest. People who have not, for the most part, been dedicated to public service, they're doing their work, right, which is about serving themselves, the industries that they come from, and the industries they will return to. You know, meanwhile, you've got Donald Trump issuing all these crazy tweets, right, and so then, you know, everybody covers it for like 24 hours until the next crazy tweet. But with this hand, they are deregulating entire industries. They are undoing so much of what are the essential functions of government. So when you raise this point, there's going to be a lot of repair that's necessary. But we can do it. And it will be with an administration that is strong and who each and to them together understand the public trust is the reason we are there, and it is in their interest that we will serve. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi.
My name is Delina Gibbons Brown, and I am so honored to be here. I am thrilled. This is the first time. Oh, you gonna hold it for me? Okay. No, this is the second time that I have been able to interact with a presidential candidate. A few months ago, I attended a town hall with Julian Castro. But anyway, my question is, or my issue is, campaign reform.
Yes.
Okay, what are you going to do to make it an even playing field?
That's
I
right.
truly believe that the forefathers didn't design our system or this country so the rich and the super rich can run it. It was
Right.
meant for everyday people
You're so
to
right.
govern. So what are your plans about campaign reform?
Oh, you're so right. You are so right. And you're so right. And that is one of the things I look forward to working on immediately with gusto. Because we are, to your point, because of the influence of money in politics, because of things like Citizens United, the outsized influence that corporations and dark money, like literally, at least stand up and say who you are when you're trying to influence a campaign. I fought against the dark money interests when I was Attorney General of California. Literally, behind anonymous. They're trying to influence how we think about issues, much less who is elected or what piece of, legislation gets passed. And so I'm with you, and we've got to do it in a number of ways. We've got to take money out of politics. We've got to have public funding of campaigns is what I believe is and limits. Because there is still the issue of, can you constitutionally tell somebody what to do with their own money? But we can put limits on spending, right? And in a way that is about trying to level the playing field. But it's a very real issue, and associated with that is voting rights. And all of which, by the way, point to the Supreme Court of the United States. But voting rights are full on under attack. When the United States Supreme Court passed Shelby v. Holder in 2013, 24 states at least immediately started passing laws that were intentionally designed to suppress African Americans, Native Americans, students. You know that right here in Iowa, we're seeing that. To the point that there was a court of appeal in North Carolina that said, and this is a quote, with surgical precision the law was written to suppress the vote. So, and this is happening right in 2020. And so what we also need to do on the immediate front is make sure that here in states like Iowa, where we've got to fight for our students' right to vote, and then, neighboring states, what we need to do to support the folks who are helping organize folks to be registered and actually to get to the polls. And then we have the most contemporary form of voter suppression, which is Russian interference. But that's real. It's real. So I'm the only candidate on the stage who serves on the Senate Homeland Security Committee, but I also am the only candidate who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which means that over the course of the last couple of years, I've been in regular receipt of classified information from our intelligence community about threats to our nation's security and hotspots around the world. Russian interference is real. It was real then, which has been documented, and you listen to people like Christopher Wray, who is the head of the FBI, and others who tell you that it is real in terms of 2020. And also we know that my campaign has been a #1 target of Russian bots. Yes, yes, yes. And so what we have to do also on this point, because again, it's about voter suppression. And what does voter suppression result in? Not everybody will vote, which means we lose the one person, one vote. And there's so much of what the Russian influence was about, which was basically misinformation that was designed to turn people off. And the net effect of that is suppression. People say, it's all too messy, I'm just not going to vote. And here's the thing, the irony of it. So when the Russians decided to interfere in our elections, right, because they decided, well, they can't, we are their longstanding foe. Well, they can't raise an army. They cannot meet us in terms of our military might. Their economy is not as strong as ours. But they said, what can we go at that is part of the strength of who America is? It's their democracy. When we walk in a room around the globe, we go with our chin up, and we are respected because we are a democracy, flawed though we may be, imperfect though we may be. So they said, let's go at that. And so what did they do? They started testing out things to see what would get us going at each other. And in so doing, back to the question of my friend in the back, they exposed America's Achilles heel, race. That's what got people going at each other. In fact, the Intelligence Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, we just published a report about this a few weeks ago. I invite you to see it. And so we're going to have to, in our march toward 2020, also remind our friends and everyone to really be alert to facts versus fiction, to really be alert to when people are getting played with misinformation that is designed to turn people off. So these are the challenges before us. We can meet them as long as we keep talking about it and focused on it in a way that's about repair. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Let's go towards the back. I see a hand right there that's waving at me. Yes. Yes, the lady in the very back.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Hi.
Yes.
Oh, you want to hold it? Okay. My name is Hamida. I am actually from Omaha, Nebraska, so I just drove here to see you. I actually have two questions. So I am actually doing my master's in public administration, public policy,
Good.
and after that, I want to go to law school because
Good.
I do want to be a prosecutor.
Good.
So I very look up to you, and it is an honor to be here. Secondly, I was born in Oklahoma, raised my whole life in Saudi Arabia, and I'm a Muslim. And for the past 4 years, I've been depressed, as everybody else, I believe. So you talk a lot about healing, and you talk about how we need to overcome what happened in the past 4 years. How are you going to do that? And second of all, would you come to Omaha, Nebraska, and at the University of Nebraska at Omaha? Yeah, we would love to have you.
I know, indeed. My husband was there like a couple weeks ago too, in Omaha. We're campaigning, and he was like, "Honey, you have to go to Omaha. There are lots of folks there." Yeah. So yes, yes. And thank you for your voice and for your courage and for your optimism in the face of all that has been happening. Because among all the hate, as I mentioned before on that list, is Islamophobia. And so there's a lot to do. And it really is, your question is joined by the first question, right? We have to use our collective voices in a way that's about elevating public discourse, about showing what we have in common, and also about calling it out. I feel very strongly no one should ever be made to fight alone. And so that's part of it too, which is that when we see anyone who is the subject of that hate, they should never be made to fight alone. We must always, always, all of us, speak out against it. There is a beautiful poem which I will, just paraphrase, but first they go for, and then they go for, and then they go for, and then it will come for you, right? And so that is the point. And it is also about, again, using this microphone in a way that we just talk about the fact that also we are living in an America that is at its core and its strength, born out of a long-standing admiration for and respect for our history as a nation of immigrants. Okay? I mean, because again, let's speak candidly. Let's speak candidly. Unless you're a Native American or your ancestors were kidnapped and brought over on a slave ship, your people are immigrants. That is a fact. And again, it's been just the attempt to undo part of the strength of who we are as a nation that we have seen Donald Trump engage in using this microphone in a way that has been about vilifying and talking about the other. And it is contrary to the strength of who we are. And so we're going to get back to that day. And please stand in Kamala's corner on caucus night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your strength. Great.
All right. Well, let's give Senator another hand. Thank her for coming out.